Hey artists, observing objects, a three-dimensional object that can sit at your desk or at your working space is really rewarding, and it helps your observation so much, almost more than looking at hands, portraits, humans, animals. An object is always going to hold still for you. But some things to consider is just how to create the right proportions as we draw the object larger than its life size, and what details are important when you're focused just on a line drawing. So the first step really is to observe all kinds of the shapes that exist within a more complex object. So even a simple object like this apple, I'm going to note that yes, I have to sort of get a circle. So it is a circular shape, but it is not perfectly circular. I can see as it tapers down, I need to add sort of a secondary shape. Okay, so those two shapes together give me a more custom kind of apple form. I also can just determine a sort of a oval shape that helps with the cylinder. And then within the stem itself, it is a rectangular shape that's capped or crowned by a more kind of complex, organic, square-like shape. Okay? So breaking down simple shapes is really, really helpful. Sometimes finding the symmetry of something is helpful as well. So the symmetry, you can maybe draw that line straight down your object. So even if things branch off one way or the other, even if one side were more narrow, you've got sort of a benchmark. Or some artists like to get a sense of their baseline here or the height here. So that's where your ruler can be really helpful. If I weren't drawing this apple and I were doing something more complex in front of me, like this stack of books, the same sort of rules apply. So it might help me again finding the middle of that stack of books, and then just really seeing all of these shapes as rectangles, okay, that follow specific angles or lines. And then here where it's a different line, and so on. So roughing in these basic simple shapes, making sure that you're really going to fill the whole page, seeing them as squares, rectangles, circles, that is so, so helpful. Because once you've done that, it makes adding in all of the details, all the curves, letters, papers, textures, reflections, and shadows much, much better. Okay, so simple shapes is a big, big help in terms of more detailed drawing down the road. When you're going much larger, you can use your pencil to help you with proportions of your object. So if the object is there sitting at your desk, whatever you're seeing here, and I can hold, I'll do it this way, hold my pencil up to it and kind of use my thumb to measure. You might see artists doing this sometimes when they're sketching outside. They're measuring things off in the distance. So here, I know that I want to go at least 2, if not 3 times larger. So I'm going to say 3 times. If I know I want to start up here, height of my full apple, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 times larger. So there's the top and bottom, okay, of how large I want the apple to be. And I can do the same sort of measuring process with the width. 1, 2, 3. Oop, working my way back. So that's approximate, but that is going to help kind of block things in at a larger size. That's going to help to keep me on track, going right as close to the edge, making this apple as large as possible. And again, if symmetry might be helpful, totally, that's something that I'm going to consider as I now come and I start to observe. One last consideration is to how you can create more detail using just line and just a pencil. Where you press more firmly is where a shadow might be. Or if you can see a shadow falling onto the desk, you can feel free to sort of indicate that as well with softer lines. and darken it wherever it is the deepest. If you see reflections that fall onto your object, you want to draw those reflections as shapes. Or perhaps start to draw those textures or shadows as shapes. So keeping it just as a line, but really starting to build the variety of lines and mark making. So instead of shading or coloring, you're just really observing every single detail to be found within that big, beautiful object. Draw what you see, not what you think you see, and have fun.